I think about that was June, but we
I
got a
think-
whole other
We
month.
got a little time. I could tell.
Yeah. Okay. We're gonna call this meeting to order, no, this workshop, budget workshop to order. And we're gonna ask one of the ministers to say a brief prayer for us, Reverend Alford or Reverend Gibson.
I yield to you.
Let us pray. To the God of all mercies and grace, we thank you for the privilege of this great board, and we ask that you guide us and give us the wisdom to make decisions that will be in the best interest of all of our citizens. And we just thank you for the privilege of serving. And we ask your guidance today. In Jesus' name I pray. Amen.
Amen.
Pardon me, Coach. Sorry.
It's okay, we know you were there.
This conference will now be recorded.
All right, we called the budget meeting together today. And we're going to, approve the agenda in front of you. So if you approve that.
Motion.
Okay, it's been moved and proper second that we approve the agenda as read. All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, Kelvin, it's in your hand.
Okay, next item on here is the consent agenda, for your consideration. And does everybody have a copy of a hard copy of the packet if you need one?
I move to approve the items on the consent agenda.
Second.
Can I ask you a question on the contract? Do you know how much the difference was? I don't remember what last year was.
What you say now?
The cost of the audit.
Oh, the
I was
cost
just-
of the
yeah, I
audit,
was just-
okay.
I couldn't remember what last year's amount was.
Is this the same group that does it every year?
Yes. I believe, last year, I think the total price was about 56,000.
So it's only about $1,000 difference total.
Has it gone up every year?
Small amounts, but it's generally a 3-year cycle.
Okay.
Not a knock on that audit, that firm or anything, because I know they're local. I still think that we need to think about rotating auditors every other year or something. Just,
Well, how many we got in Scotland County, you know?
well, they don't have to be in Scotland.
I mean, but how many do we get?
Oh, I don't know the answer
This
to
is
that.
this is the only local firm that does
I
county.
don't think they can do it if they're certified to do it. I'm just saying that not because I think anything with them's wrong, but I would like I ain't making a big deal about it. It may not be an option.
What is this Jcpc discretionary fund about?
That is approval of the part of their budgets. It's just coming through and it's allocation of their funds. It has to be approved by this board because it's passed through the county.
I should know that since I was on that board.
Scots for Youth, and I'm on that, so I can tell you, the Scots for Youth got approved by the state for $25,000 to buy a van,
Mhm.
and that's what.
A van?
Yeah. A van.
Okay.
And this was approved by the Jcpc board.
Right.
But it just has to be approved by the commissioners also.
Well, since Tim asked the question, you're saying you thought it was 50,
6,
and am I reading that it's now what?
57.
57, okay.
Madam Chairman, I will renew my motion to approve.
I didn't approve this consent agenda.
Yes.
It's, okay, anybody second that? John, okay, it's been moved and second that, this consent agenda be approved. All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried.
And the next item is, that's April.
Good morning.
Good
Morning.
You asked me to come back to give you an update on this. One, because it would be very, it'd be to our advantage to access to a child advocacy center much closer to our law enforcement, child welfare, police department, in Scotland County. And because this, for you, could be related to how you choose to designate your MOE funding to, East Point. Or, I'm sorry, your MOE funding to East Point, your LME, it's too many acronyms. So, the Child Advocacy Center, where we left it last month, and Kevin, if you just roll to the last slide, that's where I put our update. We still have, total and complete support from Reese Saunders on his staff, who is really the biggest one pushing this, because for our, new DA, he recognizes the value of having some not input, but some, I guess, training ability, for forensic examiners and doctors when he is attempting to prosecute, people who may have abused or sexually abused children. So he's behind it. Of course, Senator Tom McInnes is still behind it, and Sandhills MCO has agreed to put some funding behind it. So where we left off is we were going to meet with East Point, a telephone conference the same day we were here last, April 28th. And so we did that, Kevin and Ms. Carol McCall and myself and Mr. Michael Van Buren, who is Reese Saunders' DA, one of his assistant DAs, met with East Point by phone conference. They were very interested. Of course, they would say they are interested. Of course, they would say Scotland County would benefit from us, but I have not heard from them since. That's not surprising at this point to me. I did send them information they asked for, which was new child welfare policy. That is going to increase the number of forensic examinations we are required to do in child welfare investigations. So I sent that policy. I attempted to follow up with her Monday, and I haven't received anything back. So it is what it is with this point on that part. Monday, I also went with Mr. Saunders, two of his staff, Robbie Hall, to Daymark in Richmond County. Daymark has built a new facility there. It is large, it is nice, and it took me about 25 minutes to get there from my office
Where is?
in Rockingham, on the Hamlet side of Rockingham, out on US 1. So I made sure to see how long it would take to get there, because that's important. Right now, we're driving over an hour or 2 hours to get forensic investigations and exams for every child that has to have one in a CPS investigation. Law enforcement's doing the same. So with Daymark, they already had 3 rooms set aside in total support and agreement for this child advocacy center to set up there. They had a room that would be equipped for the medical examinations, a room for the forensic interview, and then just office space for, I guess you'd say, the doctor or the interviewer that might need to sit over there and make notes and stuff. They were even agreeable to make the facility and the hallway that would be the CAC more kid-friendly with, of course, like murals on the walls and things like that that you would see at a facility designed for children to put them at ease. So,
April,
yes,
excuse
ma'am.
me, how would they finance building such a building?
How would Daymark build such a
I mean, yeah, who financed that?
Daymark is in the Sandhills catchment area, Sandhills LME.
Okay,
And so Sandhills is backing Daymark as a provider, and they are a private provider. So I'm sure some private funding, because I mean they're a business, they're making money, right? They're billing Medicaid for patients, they're They have sources of income plus support from sand hills makes it where they could build this building.
Cause they're doing a lot of things there in
They're
Rockingham,
doing a lot
I
of
began to
things
wonder.
at that building. And I won't digress too much, but that building, I wish that was in our catchment area, because that building has an outpatient side. It has, a crisis bedside, where if we take children into care and we have nowhere for them to go right then, and for days at a time, and that's happening now, they will house those children with facilities, shower, 24/7 monitoring. And then they have an in-house treatment side where you walk into a room that's like a common area, and then they have about 16 very small like bedrooms off of that common area where they will have treatment services. I won't call it like a group home, but if you think of that's what they're doing. So that is a nice facility. And then of course they've agreed to give us a hall for CAC.
And it's very close to us, so
And
that,
it's about 25.
that sounds impressive. If I go to Rockingham, I wanna see that.
Yes,
That's
it's
really
worth
sounds
stopping by. So we met there Monday and we heard that back. There's also been about 5 physicians who have said, yes, I will sign up to do these medical examinations for these children locally. So I'm trying to remember if I forgot anything. That's what's happened since April 28th, when I was here last.
The physicians that have signed up for the all Richmond County folks.
Right now. So we're still trying to pick the interest of who would be forensic interviewers. And so slow, small steps, as we would expect, is what is happening right now.
So Ms. Lee, your request of us is that we dedicate how much of our MOU funds for the CAC?
So to help answer that, I looked to see how many clients from Scotland County, Monarch was, I guess you'd say, funding. What your funds do now, we have 5 clients that SCATS picks up from their home. We take them to Parks and Rec, where a Hope County SCATS butts meets them and takes them to the treatment adult day center in Hope County.
Every day. Yes,
Monday through Friday. So right now, your money is supporting, which SCATS is paying for the transportation, the LME is not. So we are supporting 5 people to go to the day treatment in Hope County. So I can only assume that all of your MOE is not having to be used to support that. Kevin, do you know how much our MOE requirement is for the LME? That's something I've never really got a grasp on or had a good answer for that. So I feel like I don't know that you would have to end what you're doing for these clients here in order to also do this, because we know the LME, if you designate X amount of funds and it only takes a percentage of that, they're just going to pull the rest back into whatever they're doing, everywhere else.
Our maintenance of effort for mental health is $72,920.
Give me that number one more time.
$72,920.
Do we know how much of that would be spent for those 5 clients?
That is hard for me. In Scotland County, none of it's being spent, simply because SCATS is already paying for the transportation. And so I don't know if an amount is provided to the adult daycare in Hope County on behalf of each of these clients, or if they're billing Medicaid to get paid for those clients. It's hard for me to say. And East Point doesn't really talk about that a lot, or doesn't easily release that information.
Are you really satisfied with East Point, the communication? Or should I not ask that question?
No, you can ask it if you want my opinion on it.
Don't ask
me, I don't wanna hear it.
And it's more than opinion, it's what we experience, no. Really not. But
That's when the judge comes up and says, strike that last.
Yeah, yeah.
And jury, you strike it from there.
Forget you.
But it's in their mind though,
yeah, but it is our LME, we can't change that.
yeah.
You know, that is what it is. The little bit of influence we can have is what you can decide to do with your amount of money. That's,
So what
and
would be
continue it with-
sufficient of that, do you think, to go?
kind of a loaded question.
It is, but I mean, we can't reach up in the sky and pull one, so
You're
we gotta
right.
have something to work for or work on. I mean, is it 50%? Is it 35%? Is it 10%?
Five
I don't know.
pots, 15% of that,
It's probably what they're using.
I would think.
That's,
Let me do this, let me try to get this from, unless you really need to make a vote today and decide this today, let me try this from another angle and see if I can find out what an adult daycare gets per day for a person they're serving.
you know, we're not approving this today.
No.
Okay, so if I can do that, that'll give us a much better idea, and if they're billing Medicaid for it, because if they're billing Medicaid for it, the LME's not paying for it.
Which means we may not be paying anything for it.
And most likely, don't you think they get Medicaid to do it? Most likely, it would be Medicaid.
Yes, ma'am, they're gonna bill Medicaid first, LME's gonna make them do that before the LME's, gonna.
But let's say that it's a third, and so we want to take $24,000 and continue doing what we're doing for those clients. Is the remainder of it assigned to the Child Advocacy Center going to be sufficient for our contribution?
I think any contribution we can give is helpful. And so to say, there's a lot to be decided as far as, is Daymark going to charge this CSC, for lack of better words, for rent? Right now, it appears not, because Sand Hills is backing this, and they already have the facility available. Maybe that's some in-kind services. Right now, we won't be paying physicians because, there's not the money to do it. So it would be more about funding. The funding, I'm not gonna say it's totally up in the air, but it's just not boiled down to the point where it's gonna be $100,000 a year for all income services.
And you don't know what Richmond and Anson can dedicate, or have they even dedicated?
Counties, no. LME, yes. And so, of course, if you can get your money from the LME, then you do.
Would we be able to use that center whether we make any financial contribution?
I think so. I do think
I'm not
so.
suggesting that we not contribute, that's the.
I do think so, and I say that because Mr. Saunders is so heavily invested in this, and we are in his judicial district. And anytime I talk to him and I hear him talk, he likes consistency across his judicial districts and how he is trying cases and all that. So I do. I think part of what we need to remember too, Anson County is smaller, especially when it comes to child protective services. They're gonna have a third of the referrals to this as we are. And Richmond is gonna be pretty much in line with us as the number of kids that'll go.
And those are the three counties that you're looking at.
Nothing will, I guess it does involve this, but you said it was talking about it was occurring here frequently now. What happens when you go on a Friday night, there's 3 children that you gotta take into custody and you don't have anywhere to go or don't have a home to put them in?
We are paying staff to spend the night at the office.
At the office, you have I know you have a little house.
Now, luckily, we're probably the only county in the state that has that little visitation house, has a
So they
couch in
use that
there,
as the-
has a bathroom in there, and so it's more comfortable than sitting in a chair. Occasionally, and this has been years ago, we've used, hotel rooms, and staff would have to go stay at a hotel room. That's if it went on for days and days at a time. I called the Domestic Violence Center to try to forge some kind of, partnership with them for situations like that. And based on their funding, they can't allow for us to do that.
How many times, how many nights during the year would you have the need for?
Up until this year, that didn't happen. This year, it's probably happened 3 times.
Hey, but let me ask you this question. Foster parents are relatives to place these children with, has it gotten significantly more difficult over the past few years?
You know, when I was doing investigations, you could find a grandparent, you could find an aunt, you could find a sister. There were appropriate people in that parent's lives that could help them out by taking their children for a matter of time while we work with the parent. And now, 18 years later, I work with that grandparent because they were neglecting their children. Or we get allegations that the sister is also using drugs. And it's like, so the kinship placements are harder to find. We can't approve them because something pops up on their criminal record, or we know them already, or we place the children a couple of days later, somebody calls us up and says, oh, well, she's using drugs too.
Well, I would assume that a lot of times the situations that you're having to become involved in, if you had that kind of caring family members, the situation was less likely to occur.
Yes, right, because before any child comes into foster care, we're asking that mother or that father, we need a placement. To keep your children out of foster care, we need a placement from you. And we'll still work with you, but your children don't have to be in foster care.
So how much impact now does that have on the workers, social workers on that side of the equation?
And so that's part of the reason you've seen your foster care case loads shoot through the roof. Because basically when they're not in foster care, we call it 215, just a funding code. Those used to be higher and your foster care would be lower, and now it's kind of going like this. You know, it's just taking a shift. Now, we still have plenty of 215 cases to keep our staff fully, but now and that's why we've needed more foster care workers and a supervisor, because the numbers are rising, and one person can only tend to the needs of the child so much.
Do you have much trouble in getting foster parents in this county?
We started a MAP class Tuesday night, which is a foster parent licensing class, so that'll run for 10 weeks.
10 weeks. I have considered that myself, that's why I asked that question.
There was, the room was almost full. We may get 3 or 4 homes out of that.
It goes for how many weeks?
10 weeks.
10 weeks.
Yes, ma'am. 3 hours.
I'm sorry, I'm not
It's a
interested.
30-hour course. I mean, we're trusting these people with our children to be their parents. So it's a 30-hour course, and then all the other conditions that come with that. So.
And what is the foster child count in Scotland County now compared to a year ago or 2 years ago?
2 years ago is double.
It's double 2 years ago.
Since 2 years, and so
So what's
it's
the
a
total,
slow.
100?
It's about 105 to 107.
And some of that, I'm assuming, is also in the last year, court has slowed down to nothing. So I know
Court is a huge problem.
I know they've had cases that they've been trying to go from foster care to adoption, but they have to have a court order to do that, and they've not been able to do that.
That's another angle that I try to work on behalf of the department, meeting with Judge Amy Wilson, and it has its own huge impact, like Kevin said, on keeping kids in care that really shouldn't be there.
I tell you, y'all have quite a job in social service. Thank you for all the efforts you put through
Well,
this.
you have to enjoy it to keep doing it.
Yeah, I believe that, I
Well,
believe that.
that's more children in foster care than we have in the jail right now.
Yeah, because our jail population is lower than it's been in decades.
Is that because the court's not functioning proper? I mean, the way it's been?
It's because the courts have been changing how they're doing things with bargains, with bond, and how they're processing people. The courts are specifically acting in ways to reduce the number of non-violent people in custody
Uh-huh.
in the jails.
That's good.
because of COVID.
That's good.
Hopefully that'll.
And the number of people
It
that,
was prompted by COVID, but it's a good thing to
Yes.
be occurring.
Well, my understanding too, that when they changed DAs, it helped speed that process up, and because a lot of people stay in there 5 and 6 months, but even if they'd been found guilty on day one, they wouldn't serve for 30 days.
Right.
And so I think that's been sped up some too.
but so the prison population,
Getting back to this question, are we gonna wait for April to come back and give us some information on the first Monday and?
Or whatever the next budget.
Well, that also, it may take some time, because these funds are not necessarily part of, you will budget the allocation to LMA, the $72,900. You will budget that. At that point in time, the board can, if it's July or August, and you can go off and designate the funds later. Because it will take time.
Then we can designate it after that.
Yes.
I mean, we got to have a number. So-
I agree.
Well, I think the position of one commissioner at least would be that we support the concept of the child advocacy center.
I will, like I said, work that other angle, trying to get that in a different way and seeing what I can find out.
Sounds good.
okay, thank you.
Can I give you one Medicaid managed care update, really two? I think you'll find interesting. Scotland County's enrollment rate in the Medicaid managed care is 8% of our Medicaid population.
And that's ended now, right? Or the
And it
enrollment.
was so bad across the state, they extended it for 7 days.
Wow.
So like this week, the report came out, our enrollment rate is 8%
Say that again, your enrollment rate for,
for Medicaid managed care. If you remember, there's a population
Right.
that have to pick a broker,
right?
8% have done that.
But it ends today, right? Even with the
It
extension.
ends 14th, the 21st,
That's today.
Because they extended.
yes.
Did you say 8% or 18%?
Wow.
8.
Isn't that kind of low?
No, it's
Very
not
low.
kinda.
I mean, the whole state was at like 10.
So what they gonna do? Everybody gonna,
They gonna force them into
And
it.
so they will be auto enrolled,
Mm.
next week, beginning next week, they will be auto enrolled, and they'll never know what happened until they go to the doctor in July, and then they start calling us.
Yeah.
We start
Without an
billing.
option at that point to make any changes, right?
They can make changes once they figure out I was enrolled in Mod Care and I want to be in one call or Health Blue. They can change up to so many days. And they can always change at a research period when their Medicaid's
Gotcha.
recertified.
But DSS can't change it.
We can't do the work.
Right.
We're getting calls. That will probably work us to death, fielding the calls and saying, we can't help you, but here's the enrollment agent number.
They just had that on speed dial and
Field.
transfer.
Right. Like put it on our recording when you call DSS.
So at that point in time, you will be getting calls that DSS is not helping, but DSS can give them the 800 number
But they can't get involved.
and the website, and that's it.
I'm even very careful about telling my staff, you don't pick a program for people, you don't lobby for a program for people, like the different, like Healthy Blue wants to bring pamphlets out, we hand out, no, like this is their choice. We can't hand them one pamphlet if we don't have all 5 pamphlets, so.
that's where the community comes in, helping the people, individuals, because a lot of people gonna need help,
Well, I
and the
just wanna say-
pastors and from different ones to help them figure out what to do, excuse me.
10% is low, that's what it is for the state, but I would have never thought it would have been that low. I mean, because I saw a lot of advertising about it, you on the
I see it
radio,
on
I've
billboards,
seen on
radios,
cable
TV.
channels, it was on TV.
I don't know if we have a mindset that people just take for granted it's gonna be there and I don't really need to worry about this and they can't really,
They're not gonna pay attention to it until they try to do something and they can't.
right.
I don't want, or they had in their mind, I don't want to change my Medicaid to whatever company, I want to keep Medicaid. Well, you are, but
I'm very worried about our transportation, clients, because at beginning June 1st, now they would call and say, hey, I need to go to, my medical provider in 2 days, and we'd say, okay, let's get you on the schedule. Now, come June 1st, we have to say, you have to call your Medicaid managed care provider and schedule that trip. And we will still take them, most likely, but then the managed care company calls us back and schedule the trip.
So what's that number now? Call,
I'll get it for you.
What? okay, I mean, when they could call us and complain and all that, it'd be good if we got the number to give them,
I will send it out today.
okay,
I'll send it over to Jason.
because they will call and they
Oh,
will.
I didn't know if you, so I thought maybe you were volunteering to take all the calls, so I
You
can
got
send
to
them
be.
to yours.
I'm not that slow today. I'm just kind of slow, but I ain't
Wait
got
till
that.
later in the day, you might get a buyer.
Look, Ms. Golston has a number she gives you.
But if that doesn't work here, it's April Sneaks.
Yeah.
Here her cell phone.
Here's her home number.
But you know what people call you for, everything, anything,
I'll send back out that snapshot I sent you 2-3 months ago, and it'll have that information on there for you.
You said you were gonna do 2 updates? Is that,
Those were the 8% and the extension of.
which is over today,
Which is
over today?
anyway.
Thank you, man.
Next item, 2 items that were discussed in the policy committee. First one was discussion about 401K, because with that, we have in the past reduced the 401K down to 2%. The conversation was looking at the possibility of looking for an increase in the policy, increase in that funding level. I think the general conversation with the policy committee was looking not necessarily to a specific increase in 1 year, but over a shorter period of time, what kind of increase or a change, if any, the policy committee wanted to recommend back to the board. And actually, right off, and I apologize, I don't remember what the final recommendation from the policy committee was. Do you remember that, Susan?
I think you were going to get the numbers for the different percentages and then discuss, number one, what would our goal be?
Right.
Do we want to get to 5%? Do we want to get back to 3.25%, which is where it was when it was reduced? And once we set our goal, how do we want to get there?
Was it 3.25 or 3.75?
Sure, we're on the same page.
You're
You're talking about the
That's
max.
what it is now.
Yes.
It's at 10% now.
Yes.
We're talking about what we'll match up to.
Yes.
When did we lower it from 3.25 or 75 to 2?
In 2011.
Yes.
And why was that?
Pure budget.
Budget.
That was the year that will probably, as employee schedule, go down in infamy. When we had several reduction in force and we had a furlough, and then it took us, incrementally, we got that back. Also longevity was waived, and then we eventually got that back. And I just brought it up for consideration, since the 401K contribution was reduced to 2%. Does the board want to increase that back up? Or there's some municipalities and counties that actually do the 5%, which is required for law enforcement officers. I know the city of Laurinburg, everybody gets the 5%.
And John and I were part of that conversation. As best I can remember, we felt like we wanted to increase the IRA contribution to a level at least equal to what it was when it was reduced, whether it was 3.25, something in my brain, I had
It's
it,
3.25.
3.25.
Yes, sir.
At a minimum, we wanted to do that, but we talked about not necessarily doing it all in one year, but maybe going up part of that the first year and the rest of it next year. And we didn't have a vote on it, I don't think, we just said that was our conversation. The further part of that conversation was, we feel like that it's one of those things that can help with retention of employees. We're competing with other counties who are offering higher contributions than we are. Probably if we wanted to get it to a level that it would be competitive, we probably would have to approach that 5%. But we just didn't know that we wanted to come back and make a recommendation to this board that we go up to 5%. And I can't remember, Susan, were we gonna find out what other counties were doing? I don't.
Well, I have and I wanted to ask Jason, did you include that? Okay,
Yeah.
the employer contribution sheet. And you'll see where I've highlighted, just in population comparison and in, geographic, regional locations. Anson County gives 3%, Cumberland, I was surprised, they only give 2%. Franklin County 4%, Lee County 5%, Moore County up to 3%, Richmond County gives 5.5%, Robinson 4%, and of course, we're up to 2%.
I don't see Hope County on here. Does that mean they don't have one?
They do not have one, I checked with them. They do not have a, employer contribution.
So what does 1% cost us? Just, trying to figure out how much per percent.
1%, a 0.25% increase is $35,000. So a 1%
120.
increase is 140.
That's half of.
And we definitely need to move it up. I've been down here for 15 years, and it's my experience, not my feeling. But because of our school floor formula, not that we anything other than just being honest, the formula that we funded has not kept up with the real world. And what was true in 1964 is not true today, but this is how we got here. This is where we are today in the real world. And that's what it has caused, not by our doing. We are still operating by the playbook of 1964. And that playbook, as I was thinking about this, it reminded me of the Four Corners. You remember watching that game? It was a super game in that day. But today, if you played the Four Corners,
They turn the TV off.
you turn the TV off. So I'm saying we're operating by the same playbook that worked in 1964. It was good. But today, this is the result we get from using the same playbook that was implemented in 1964.
That's why they have a shot clock now.
You got a shot clock now, but we're still playing under the Final Four playbook. And this is what you get from it.
Well, the conversation came up at the liaison committee meeting yesterday, and the comment that I made was that I believe that the reduction in the 401k was caused by a number of factors having to do with the economy. I was not on the board at that time.
Yeah.
I guess what I've experienced or what I've heard was that the cut in salary, the longevity, all of those were a byproduct of trying to make the budget work because of the number of factors, not just school
Right.
funding.
All I'm gonna say about the increase, and certainly we wanna do the best we can for our employees, but that's almost half of a 1 cent tax sale, property tax reduction, is it not? So let's keep in mind that it may be difficult to reduce this tax rate this year, but I would love to see 1%. And I just want everybody to keep in mind that for the people of Scotland County,
That's
that every little 100,000 we add, we're gonna get closer to not getting that property tax rate low.
Well, again, that's not a decision we're gonna make today anyway, so.
I don't think there was really even a recommendation, are you all recommending anything that we consider for the
I don't
budget?
think as a committee, we'd make a recommendation. I think personally, I would like to see us do something. And I think, I'll make it in the form of a motion. I don't really want to do that yet. But my thought is we'd go up to at least maybe 3.5% and we go up 0.5%. Plan to go up 0.5% each of the next 3 years. The only decision we would be making now would be that we're gonna go up. That's our plan, but for this budget year, we would go from 2 to 2.5%, which would be an additional $70,000 in the budget.
I can live with that.
So in order to continue the conversation, I will make that in the form of a motion. And maybe the conversation is, we need to do more or less than that.
Okay. You got that covered.
Maybe you have a motion, but it dies for the lack of a second.
I forgot.
I was gonna say, are we at a second?
Okay,
We
I'm
need to
sorry.
second that.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you well.
Did I not phrase it in terms of a motion?
Okay, I'm sorry, I don't think you did, but maybe you did. He did, I wasn't listening, I'm sorry about that.
So
Okay, it's a move and proper second, made by
John.
John and second by Whit. Is that how it was, or vice versa?
Vice versa.
Vice versa. It's moving proper that we increase the 401k contribution to increase by 0.5% for the next 3 years. Thank you.
Well, for the next.
For
Well,
this year, I'm making,
For this year, and then do it how often the next 3?
I'm saying my goal, and perhaps our goal would be that we go up a half and a half. But the only motion I'm making is for this coming year, we increase from 2 to 2.5.
All in favor, let me know by saying aye.
Uh,
Anybody opposed? Motion's carried.
Okay. Okay. The next item was discussion of having a salary study completed. This is something we have not had a salary study done since before 2000.
92, 93.
Okay. And what we're looking at doing is this would be we would ultimately be doing a countywide, but it would not be done in a single year. It would be done in a phased-in approach over 3 years. Because we couldn't afford to implement it in 1 year.
No, ask you how much it's gonna cost. Okay.
What we're looking to do is we would basically break up, and this is an outside agency, this is one of the things that they do. We would break up the county into functional units, and basically do a salary study, over 3 years. And then build in a adjustment for that salary study as we go along, so that we're implementing basically a third of the county each year for the next 3 years.
Do you see that is a good possibility? You think our financial situation would be a point where we could do that over that time?
As long as we're breaking it out and as long as we continue with our current economic growth, it's going to be a stretch. It's difficult. This budget was definitely not any easier than any others. And we'll go into a little bit of the detail on that later. But this is going to be a situation where, you know, there's always going to be environmental concerns or corporate environment concerns about recruitment and retention. But one of the very common things is right now, we are lower than everybody else around us. So especially in your higher stress positions, EMS, 911, DSS, they can go 20 minutes away and they can make 10% more. That's going to be an issue. We can bring in a lot of people and we can get them their training, that 1 to 2 year experience. But then they can go somewhere else with that experience and get a promotion and a raise because they're no longer entry level. So that would be as much for retention as anything. And it would hopefully open up, create a better situation where we're able to further develop talent internally. So that we, you know, ultimately it will allow us to gain additional, you know, upward mobility into units, because right now you get somebody who's coming here for a year or 2 years, then they can go somewhere else, and now they're going somewhere else as a lead supervisor making 15% more. So
I guess it's something we have to do then.
My take on this salary study, without it, I can be no help to the county manager or personnel manager when they're sitting here telling us about, you know, the retention of employees and salaries. Without a study, without me having something to go by, I can even contribute anything to the conversation. So I think it's something that we have to have in order to be informed as a board, so that we can give you an informed opinion, advice as to what we need to do. This is why I would support this study. I know it can cost, but without that information, I'm useless. That's just my take on it, because I don't know what's going on in other counties.
How much does the studies cost?
it's $17,000
Is that a year or total?
for a
For
year.
the first 2 years, for the third year, it'll be 3,800.
Yeah.
Because that's when we're doing DSS and health, and they do not have to do the classifications because the state has already classified them.
So in the first 2 years, they would actually come in, they would do interviews, they would actually do a classification study for employees also, which will also help on a number of other things, helping with job descriptions, give us better you know. Your good employees, they don't know half of what they do because they just do it even though it's not written down anywhere. So, you know, this goes in and helps us make sure there's more equity involved as well.
Explain that last statement to me, just please.
You have people who have basically just taken on duties because it's something that it needed to be done. And then later on, they're asking, well, what do you do? Okay, well, here's my job description. This is what I do. And they just don't add in all the extra things that they just picked up. You know, that everybody just accepts that they do, but it's not written down anywhere.
It's like that's tough when we say, you know, Jason will take care of that. He
Yeah.
gets to add on his list.
No. It doesn't happen.
Is that something we need to vote on to do?
Before, the board would have to approve, the study before we can engage.
Motion approved the study for the salary study for the 3-year plan.
Second.
It's been moved and proper second that we, say that again,
Just to do the 3-year salary study.
3-year salary schedule. All in favor?
Hey, before we vote, can we have a discussion?
Oh, yeah, okay, I'm sorry.
And just a question.
Okay, question?
Well, my question, I guess, Kevin and Susan, is if their purpose is to identify those positions that we need to make, I think it would be great to do the whole study. My question is the purpose to identify those positions that we're having the hardest time retaining staff so that we can adjust or address the turnover rate by trying to increase their salary and benefits? I would assume that would be one of the primary functions of this.
That is one of them.
Okay. And you may need to tell me what some of the others are, but if that's the case, is there a smaller number of folks whose job descriptions we need to evaluate that would cost us less money and we could concentrate our effort on those positions?
And some of that's what we've been doing internally anyway. Over the last several years, we've been targeting some of those higher turnover areas.
Law enforcement.
We've done law enforcement, we've done jailers, we've done social workers, because we've known those, so we've addressed. In the last 3 years, we've done something to address those specifically. So now we're coming back through, and they will be included in the rotation. But we're just looking at all of them because that, and also, we're just finding recruitment right now is very difficult. We have
Across the board.
We have a couple of departments that have higher turnover rates, especially in that under 3-year range. Once you've been here 5 years, there's a very good chance you're going to retire here. But if you come to work here, there's a 25% chance you'll be here in 3 years. And that may be more market norm, but.
Well, I just looked at that and I wish I would have scanned it before I came in, but, we were just looking at the number of years, that folks have been here, and more than 50% of our workforce has been here less than 2 years. It's a
Really?
constant. Just
Say that one more time?
more than 50% of our workforce has been here less than 2 years.
Wow.
It's like
We got a
this.
high turnover then,
It's
huh?
like this, constant.
But the whole, everybody seems to be looking for workers these days, and people are just not coming to work.
Do we do exit interviews?
We have tried to incorporate that, and we've tried even to do something confidential through SurveyMonkey, to where we just send them a link, it's not identified at all, and we're having really hard time garnering that information. What we have talked about in our HR team meetings is, instead of trying to garner information when they're leaving, is to go to state interviews to find out, especially our target goal is to start a whole onboarding process where when we bring them in, get them oriented, and then we check back with them maybe after 90 days. And then we check back with them after another period of time to have intervals of contact and connection with these employees. Have you gotten your, just simple things, have you gotten your sign-on credentials? Have you successfully gone to this website? Are there things in your training that you're having difficulties with? Things like that. Trying to maintain these employees instead of trying to give information when they're gone.
We do those
So
at
we're-
every probationary evaluation.
Mhm.
They did a
So that's one of the things we're gonna work towards is to build an ongoing onboarding sort of process. But, one of the factors is that we have a transient workforce. People don't stay long anymore. But one of the factors is that one of the things we're experiencing in recruiting is that we're getting fewer and fewer applications. We just had to recruit for one position for the third time. We just don't have the applications coming in. And of course, that's one of the technical positions, so we're really looking for technical expertise, but we're looking at possibly advertising a fourth time.
The conversation, I think generally throughout the nation right now is that because of COVID and because of the increased unemployment benefits, that many folks are having a horrible time finding workers. And they're hoping that with some of these benefits expiring, that people are gonna come back to work. Do you see?
And understanding that, but we were seeing this pre-COVID.
That was the question.
Yes, sir. We were seeing this pre-COVID. And one of the things with what I would just point out is that we're being tasked to make sure that we're getting our information out to a larger area, larger margin, trying to get information out about our recruitment. And one of the things, we're really gonna have to be competitive with our salaries to recruit.
Well,
Okay, so are there any more questions? Okay, so are you satisfied?
yeah, I'm ready to vote, yes, ma'am.
Okay. All right. It has been moved and proper second that we decide, that we, what's the plan now? What's the amount?
3-year salary.
3 year salary study. All in, it's been moved and proper second. All in favor, let me know, I'm saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion is carried.
And through that conversation, but do you, Susan, you see the salary study as being, giving the board information to make some decisions that are gonna help in some of those areas?
I do, and do I think every position is gonna be increased? No, sir, I don't.
Okay.
I think we have, some positions properly classified. But I think just in general with the number of years that, we have had no cost of living adjustments, even beyond 2011, but the accumulation of those years, I would say we're probably about 10% behind
Everybody else.
other counties.
But listen,
That's just off the cuff figure.
this time of year, you're looking at the graduations. There's so many people finishing college now. Are we tapping in on that market?
We are pushing these to the universities, yes, ma'am. And for that position I just mentioned, the department head has even contacted universities. And not just sending it through email, he's actually contacted, to say, okay, do you have some, computer, put this out to your computer graduates? Because it's a technical computer
Yeah,
position.
right.
Well, I'm gonna also suggest that if 50% of the county workforce is less than 2 years old, we got a problem other than salary and benefits. I'm not sure what it
Retention
is.
problem.
And we've gotta figure a way to find out what that is.
That's right.
Which is why I ask our exit interviews, of course, that we can remember. It's always hard to get people to tell you when they're leaving or why they're leaving, because they're gone.
Right.
Yeah, the true reason, yeah. But I do think we've gotta really, as you said, dig into that.
Well, Regina announced on her, when she comes before the radio, that
Yes.
she announced the openings that we have in the county.
Yes, Regina always puts that on her hot jobs every week. We're sending it to our email list, the recruitment resources, It's on our website. It's also going out to government jobs, which is nationwide. It's going out to Indeed because Indeed feeds from government jobs. So
Okay.
it's getting circulated out there. I think the circulation, we've advanced that, but, it's just for the last, I would say for the last 5 to 7 years, maybe even longer than that. I remember years ago, we would have a landfill position open and we would get 45 applications for it. But now for any position, maintenance, we're having a hard time just getting maintenance
And
positions.
that's hard to believe with maintenance, isn't it?
Yeah, we're having a hard time getting applications just for maintenance positions. And that was pre-COVID as well.
It's hard to understand. But, Kelvin, can we have about a 7-minute break, use the restroom and that kind of thing? And we'll come back and
Madam Chairman, we can have a longer break as you decide.
7 minutes.
10 after.
Okay.
Let me ask you this.
Yes, sir.
These where it says
Mr.
up to 5%.
Alford
Mhm.
is sick. He's going to the doctor, so he won't be back. Or I assume.
I think that's a match, they will match up to 5%.
Well, he
So
said
if
when he
an employee
got there,
gives 6, they're only gonna get
He
5.
looks like he should be like it's 3 different.
Right.
Okay. I didn't know whether or not they would, which I would not ever suggest, unless if you've been there 5 years, you get 3%. That feels like you only 2%.
Yeah, that would be hard to
That
manage.
would drive y'all nuts.
Mhm.
But that makes more sense though.
Yes. Excuse me, anything else on the agenda?
No.
Okay, all right, I'll be watching. Okay, thank you.
Like a man with something on his mind. Well, not really, I just want to say something, but I know we still live, so I won't say too much. But we'll say this.
Yeah, microphones are still on.
Yeah, I figured. Let's just step outside. Yeah, it makes it a whole lot easier. Yeah. You take coffee with you? No, I'm okay.
Going on?
Working on a presentation for this last night, or at 5 o'clock.
It was 5:02 precisely. Oh, crap.
In there,
Oh, gosh,
now my budget was $600,000 out of whack.
oh, gosh.
because that one is gonna roll,
Mhm.
whatever else.
Well, after I did that, hold on, but if I did that, that's what I did. All right,
I haven't looked at that spreadsheet you put on there, thought I might do that today. I've been trying to finish evaluations.
And I'll go ahead and tell you now, I'm gonna talk about you a lot.
Oh, okay. How long are they gonna be here then?
The budget discussion is gonna be a long one, but hopefully by 2. And what I'm gonna talk about is, workforce, basically. My total operating budget has gone down from this year to next year.
That's impressive.
Yeah.
That's
You're-
magic.
Yeah, because your operating budget has gone up because of foster care.
Well, that kind of makes sense.
Now, I'm gonna show that, okay, here's yours, Sheriff Jay, I'll put here's your operating budget. And then here's your uncontrollable operating. So all those state things, program dollars. So I'm showing, okay, those are $8 million, still $100,000 to run your department off. Not put this out.
Right.
And then you have your operation. So when I say I want to talk about you.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
The numbers are
And
the
there's nothing you
numbers.
can do about it.
Oh, I know, numbers are the numbers. We are looking much more closely. We have a new lady. She's much more involved with it.
Like I'm the only one eating today.
That's okay.
Well, at the end of this year, we've done.
You know, next Tuesday, I have surgery. I'll be out of any kind of anything next week. I have to sit with my head. You know, we talked about that.
Yeah.
That's Tuesday, so
That's Tuesday, okay.
Monday I have to travel and get the person to stay with me and all that stuff.
Well, I'm glad you reminded me.
Yeah, so I won't be taking no calls for anything.
Okay.
Cause they say you can't move around.
For 7 days, right? All right.
Of insanity.
No, that's not true. You have to compare it to another report that shows, oh, you're overspending that, yet it says you have $60,000 on it. This LBL pointed that out to us, like another LBL has never bothered to do that. And it was based on a 40-hour call, but it didn't show, it says you still have a remaining balance. That means you still have money to spend.
Right.
Anyway, we're taking a hard look at that. Which doesn't mean we're gonna save any money. Taking an allocation will never enough to cover what you're doing anyway, but you never know what it might look like.
I think it's been 7 minutes.
It's 7 minutes now.
Okay. April, can you,
Yes, ma'am.
you younger than I,
I can,
by 3 or 4.
So hit the push bar.
Put your back into it.
apparently.
There's not enough for her to put.
I guess what I'm saying. I wish I put your weight behind it. That would be like, push the one that says peach.
Get the gym, we'll be in there.
Oh, that's good.
Nothing like coffee. You got coffee? Nothing like coffee.
I did make that visit yesterday.
Did she pay?
No, not that I know of.
I don't either, that's why.
No.
She still hanging on.
Knew I was there, talked to me.
You were able to talk to her?
She talked to me.
I guess because of the pain of the
Very,
discomfort.
very in and out though. She was
Yeah, I'm hoping she can make it, but it's psychological, like it's doing something to me.
Oh, it's heartbreaking. It really is heartbreaking.
Betty, I don't know what's going on with Jane next door, but, they've done a bunch of cleaning out behind the wall at my house. That's their land, but they cleaned it all out, and it looked to me like they were cleaning the house out, but
Really?
I don't know if they moved her somewhere or what. I had to talk to Mary Margaret.
Every day I plan to call her. I'm gonna call her when I get home. Thank you so much for
I just
reminding
don't
me.
know
Yeah, but she was on oxygen and I don't know where she gotten worried.
I don't know. I never, since Johnny's funeral, I haven't seen her.
I visited her once, but she called me and wished me happy birthday, and she had the wrong date, because she said she heard on the radio, but anyway, it was so good to talk to her. And I should call her every month, I really should.
I just don't, Mary Margaret usually tells me what's going on over there, or Karsten or somebody, but I hadn't seen them.
Really? Is the business still going on? Do
The
you know?
business is still going on.
Business.
See, that was what was behind my house, behind that wall, was all the business equipment and the.
Yeah.
And they cleaned all that out of there. And they had somebody in there doing something to the house, and she was looking for somebody to whole house clean it and all this. And so I don't want to ask
Yeah, I
what's
know.
going on, you know?
Well, I'm so glad you told me that. Thank you.
I got a feeling something.
Something's going on. I appreciate you telling me.
Madam Chair, I've got a question. I think, BJ, are you leaving us at noon?
I am. I'm gonna call back in, I can do it over the phone, I just can't be here.
Do we still have a forum when he leaves?
I think the
As
quorum
long as
counted.
he calls in, we will.
I thought the quorum counted once, as long as we had it once the meeting
No,
started.
you can lose it.
You can lose it.
You can lose it for him. But I think as long as he calls back in, I think we're good.
So if he calls in from the parking lot, we're good.
We should be good by 12, shouldn't we? How
If
much
you get us
question-
started, we might.
Okay, that's my fault. We're talking about something. I agree. Thank you, Commissioner Gibson. Let's start. We're now reconvene.
Okay, going on with the budget presentation, I would have to say, not much of my goals have changed since April. Right now, still have the budget balanced at, I actually have the budget balanced at, 46 million. This number will change. Looking at it yesterday, I found an error that corrected something. I'm going to be going back in. We just posted the May sales tax numbers. So my total number I'm actually going to present to the board June 7th. This will not be that total number. It will be, my allocations are not going to significantly change. But this total number will fluctuate a little bit. But with that, the current budget is that I'm going to be proposing continues on with a $1 tax rate. It does have a 2% cost of living adjustment in there. I have already done an allocation for the salary study. I'll make adjustments for the 401k contribution, increasing that by 0.5%, which I'd already had that in mind when I was doing some of the lap salary calculations. So those are in there. We do have an increase in the health insurance of 7%. That's about a $300,000 increase that is built in. And that, that was health insurance. We do have an increase in the local government employees retirement system. That is a change in the rate set by the retirement board. That is not something that this board has any discretion over. So those changes are in here, and those are some of the changes in where we're increasing our goals.
How much was the increase from the retirement board?
Approximately 0.5%.
That's right.
And is that the percentage that the county is contributing
Yes,
to the retirement system?
yes, sir.
How much dollars does that come up with?
We just calculated that number into the total. I'd have to get and see what that difference was.
Is that in the 300,000 you talked about?
That 300,000 was health insurance.
That's awfully high, isn't it?
Now, has that got any, are you planning any new employees, new headcount numbers? Additional headcount?
So far, the only additional headcount that would be in here are the DSS positions that you've already,
Yeah.
that you've already approved, yeah.
But we didn't plan anything for that Laurel Hill?
I have, right now I have the additional have additional positions, that would start in March. Assuming that project were on the original schedule. And then there would be, one position in the landfill, which is not in the general fund, which would be, additional office personnel that would actually be, that would serve function for a backup scale house operator, working functions that's also, doing administrative works for our public buildings and grounds.
Is there an increase in landfill fee planned?
No.
We need to let the city know that, because I know that was a big part of their trash discussion, is if we were gonna keep our same rate with them, so they didn't have to change.
Okay. Yeah. But with this, I can zoom in. Just the allocation, between, the 2022, the projected year is on the left, 2021 is on the right. That's our current year. Payroll budget's 21.5 million for next year. That's 47%. Currently, it's at 46% of our total budget. And again, we have those increases that I talked about. That total increase is less than all the ads that we have in there. But some of that is, these are budget. I'm trying to get that lap salary as tight as possible. Which means a lot of the departments are going to be very nervous at the end of the fiscal year.
What's your total budget for that year?
For 2022 is 46,065,000.
And what is the current year?
45,778,000.
45,778,000.
And if you go into your Google Drive and look in your shared with me, in the folders where the commissioner monthly meetings are, I put this Excel spreadsheet in the May A folder, so 11A.
I got you.
And that, I put that in there this morning.
Hey, well, when you say that, is everything you're showing us on here going to be in there?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir.
And this is a big spreadsheet. So with that, payroll's gone from 46 to 47% of the budget. Operations has dropped from 42 to 40%. And capital debt service has gone from 12% to 13%, an increase of $400,000. And one thing I'll have in here, I have, if you go in here and if you open this up, across the bottom, there are a number of tabs, quite a few of them. And what I've done in each of these tabs, this one is governing body, this is the Board of Commissioners. You have the same information across for each one. You have the revenues associated with it. Revenues for board of commissioners, that's just basically where we charge back the indirect cost. We allocate a portion of governance back to the water districts and to the governing and to the solid waste funds, because you are their boards as well. Thereafter, expenditures for next year. I did not put in the breakdown between personnel and operation here.
I'm assuming our reduction in that expenditure last year over $10,000. Is that maybe because we didn't have the travel on the NACO conference maybe, or something like that? I'm just curious. It's a big reduction in that.
Well, this 66,000.
No, go back to your left. Oh, wait a minute, maybe I'm looking at the wrong year. Oh, no, okay, it goes from 78 to 66, or does it?
66 is what that column, the 43021, that is the actual expenditures.
But I'm just comparing it back to 19.
Yes, the big thing of it is because we've had, you have 2 months left, 2.5 months left in payroll, and also, yes, you have no travel. You've had very little travel this year. So yeah, if looking at 19 to 20, you didn't go to Washington DC, which is.
We did in 20. John and I were there.
Okay. But in 19, we sent a larger contingency.
Well, much larger in 19, yeah.
Yeah, so.
I was just, while that was going down, I mean, I'm sure some of it was the travel.
And if you want, if you come, I don't have the line item breakdown in these tabs.
Mhm.
But if you want, I'll continue. I have this that comes in here, county support. This is your expenditures in excess of revenues. Fairly simple, straightforward. And then breaking down the 2022 budget and then the current budget in between how much is payroll, how much is operations, and how much is capital. And capital would be capital items, debt service, anything in those categories. If you come into the tab that shows GF expenditures, this GF expenditures and then GF revenue, and then you come in here, you can expand these out and you can see a line item detail.
It breaks it down.
It breaks it down. So if you have any questions, you can see it for the last 2 years actual, what your current budget is, what we have posted as of April 30th. And then
That's what we were talking about.
yeah. And then level 3, because it's just budget levels, we keep keying into the system. That's my proposal. And then it just helps me coming into how I break things out. You can see if it's categorized as a payroll item, an operating item, or a capital item this year and last year, or next year and the current year. So you can get as granular on the detail as you want to. And if there's more information on any of this, I'll be happy to go off and provide it as well. And again, normally we just have most of the departments generally come in with as much of a flat budget, operating budget as possible. I will also show you, there are a couple of departments because I have payroll operations and capital in all of them. But for DSS, sheriff, and jail, I did put in uncontrollable. These are items that I'm putting in here that are reasonably outside of departmental control. For the sheriff's department, the $127,500, that's their budget amount for motor fuels. That's the only account that I'm listing for the sheriff's department is
And
uncontrollable.
we're still buying all those cars every year.
Yes,
How many we buying this year?
5, I have 5 cars for next year. And it would be a replacement of, so buy 5, the goal would be to get rid of 5. So
But do they really get rid of 5?
Some
They
years
say
they do.
everybody's assigned a car, just about, so I don't know about that.
So,
But that's our plan, but we made that a rule to do every year.
but and also with uncontrollable, for the departments, we allow the departments, the finance officer can move money inside of a department, under her own authority. Thereafter, we basically tell the departments if they need to move something in payroll, well, actually, that would be HR and finance, they would do it because this line was under, that was over. Part-time and overtime would be the area there. But if they have an operating item, they need to move something from travel to office supplies or from this line item to that line item, they can do that. They just need to submit the request to finance and they approve it. These uncontrollable items like motor fuels for the sheriff's department. This is an item that also, because in the past, when gas just goes up from $2 to $4, which we've had in the past, basically, we didn't budget for it, and they came in, and of course, the board approved that. And basically, without understanding is if they run short, the board will will not question them heavily on that. We also make sure that, well, they can't take that money, and when it's going well, if there's over budgeted, they can't move money out of that line item either. So that's another aspect. It's basically one of the ones they can't touch. They can also not, department cannot move money from payroll to operations or capital to operations without serious reasons. That may happen in June, but that does not happen. That cannot happen during the month.
So some things are just fixed.
Yes.
Okay.
And then moving on to the jail. And this one is one of the jail, and the other one I'm going to talk about next would be the bigger issues. Jail, that breakdown, the current budget of $3.4 million going to a budget of $3.4 million. The sheriff's department came in with their most conservative budget request that they've had in years this year. I will give them absolute kudos for that. But with this one, I also want to point out, because we're looking at $3.5 million in our jail, 62% of which is salaries. Right now, we are basically operating, other than the transport officers that are in there, that are in the jail, we are basically meeting the state minimum for jailers. There is very specific guidelines. You have to have people on and, so we are meeting that threshold. We are not exceeding that. And of course, transportation are not in that, but then again, we also have to transport people. So we're not overstaffed in the jail.
What's the 3.1 million then?
The 3.1 million, that is the cost of the jail minus the revenues that are received, the arrest fees, the jail fees that come back through the state.
So this is for food, medical, all those things
Yes.
with the jail, okay.
And so basically our operations in the jail are, let's see, $740,000 to operate the jail, of which 615,000 are listed in the uncontrollable. Again, that's two line items. That's jail food and jail medical.
How much was that?
$615,750. And that is food and medical. So thereafter, we are running the rest of the jail on $122,000 a year.
And yeah, that's your proposal for the coming year.
Yes.
Okay, we have satisfied the inspectors that come down and tell us what needs to be done in the jail. There was some list of that. Has that been satisfied? Are we budgeted for that?
Yes. And that's done, they get an inspection from the state every 6 months. And those inspections, they always have items. Just because, painting, there are always repairs. We're always making repairs in there. The sheriff's department sheriffs are very good about maintaining the jail. But you're talking about a high occupancy place that's always in use. It just needs constant attention, and that's what they're finding on those reports. It's nothing excessive. As a matter of fact, we're in a far better place than we are now than we have been, than we were 10 years ago.
Okay.
The other quick item, the other area I did want to talk about, because I mentioned how basically our operating costs are going down. And that is in all departments. And again, like I said, this is just to get the budget in at a flat tax rate, with the increases in revenues that we're getting. But with that, there's one department that did go up in operations and services, and they increased it. Yeah, I told her I was going to pick on her, but it went up in two line items: foster care and special assistance. I went off and I put, basically my budget is about a $700,000 increase in those two line items, which is where we're projected to end the current year anyway. The state recommended an increase in between those two line items of about $1.5 million.
That was foster care and
Special assistance. So this budget recommended an increased foster care up to $700,000. I think the state suggested a budget of about 1.3 million. Special assistance, I think my budget is 200,000. They recommended a budget of 500,000 or 600,000.
State's always good at spending.
Goodness gracious, they really trying to get us to spend some
They
money.
always good at spending our.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, not their money, yeah.
Right.
And of course, with that, they are recommending increases in those funds, but help us out, they did not increase revenues.
Of course.
So those are in there. So like I said, those are increases in operations. in total operations, but that's where it's coming from. Which means I'm cutting everywhere. I'm cutting every other department, or most every other department is cutting unless we know they're already contracted out. Also with DSS, for operations and uncontrollable items, basically what I went through in their budget, and again, you can go back into general fund expenditures and you can see their line item budget. You can put in and go through, and what I've done is all the programmatic dollars that are in that budget, either as a direct flow through or a reimbursement, all of those I moved into the uncontrollable column. Because those are numbers, basically, if it's eligibility, that's going to generate the expenditure. That is not something that April gets to choose to do.
You may, in your conversation, you may have answered this, but just to help me, your budget for the current year, how much of our money are we gonna have to spend? What's the increase in what we're gonna have to spend for the next year's budget? Because I know some of it we get reimbursed for, all that. What's the
Right.
dollar impact on us?
With the increases, it's ultimately $500,000.
So what we spend for social services in the next fiscal year will be about $500,000 more than what we spent this year.
Yes, sir. Now, April and her staff, they do an excellent job of trying to spend as much federal and state dollars as they can. So, but these are just costs that.
I'm not questioning what we're doing.
Right. So with that, the part of controllable operations, of course, out of the $8 million of expenditures for social services, which is actually where we were within the last 5 years, I think, anyway. It's gone down and it's gone back up again for expenditures. 5.8 million is for payroll. 2 million is programmatic, and 110,000 is for operating.
110,000.
110,000. So basically, operations are 2% of their budget. Then for public buildings, and I'll probably go in and do this, and I'm just hitting, I know we're trying to get tight, so I'm just hitting some of the bigger departments. What I'm gonna do is come in here and I'm gonna add in the other category. I'm gonna move utilities into a uncontrollable column, so it's easy to see those, because we have a number of our facility, this is where we pay the light bill for this building, for social services, for the courthouse. And that is a significant number in here. And I did not update that. I did not update. I did not update this one, right. But I'll update public buildings. I have the wrong references in this sheet, so I'll correct this one. But with public buildings, basically, are not doing any planned major capital items for next year. As far as building renovations, other than the Laurel Hill Community Center. That's That's the one project, but thereafter we will be looking at, we'll probably be trying to figure out how to do maintenance on some parking lots. We will, as well as this means we will be pushing off the library roofing project for a year. We have done maintenance there. That should be able to keep it stable, but that will have to be done within the next few years.
So it's been a good year compared to compared to last year for its buildings, you know.
Yes, as far as building needs, we are in much better shape. Now, trying to think where some of our other large changes are going to be.
Are you planning, or maybe this is coming out of the fund, but, this supposed increase in the Laurel Hill Community Center being budgeted in here somewhere?
Yes, that was in Parks and Recreation budget. We're looking to make adjustments for it coming online in March of last.
No, but I'm talking about the increase in the cost of.
I have not done that yet, no.
Jason.
Because that is not in the general fund. That would be in a capital.
That's why I was saying it's not in the, it might be in a different one.
Right. And basically, once we get the budget estimates in, we'll come in, because right now, even the architect, they've told me they have no idea what to even begin to estimate that number would be. Now, I did not put the charts in here, but I do have the schools numbers in here. Again, I'm going into a little bit more detail in this tab on schools. It is talking about it shows the different revenue streams that we have for schools. I know I thought you can't read that from there.
That's a lot better.
Now we talk.
So at the top, we do have the revenues that do come in for the schools. And of course, these revenues are legally dedicated to education. They can't go anywhere else. There is a part of the sales tax that comes in each year, interest revenues, and that is on the amount of our sales tax. Basically, part of our interest that we receive, we figure out how much money how much restricted money we're holding at any point in time. So they get that allocation of interest as well. Right now, with general interest, we're getting nothing on our anything we're holding in our cash accounts, or next to nothing. And we use North Carolina Capital Management Trust for interest, and that last year we were getting almost 1%, but then it dropped back down to basically nothing. So
What is that lease income on the revenue?
lease income, this one is when we did the school expansions and then the new school. Part of it was, of course, the savings from reducing operations was supposed to be able to pay for it. But we could not go in and just cut current expense to pay for that debt service. If we did, that showed as a reduction. At that point in time, it interfered with low wealth funding. So when we did the grants, basically, the new school, and I believe Laurel Hill, or Sycamore Lane, one of the two, is currently owned by the county. We have the deed. Until the debt service is paid at that point in time. Once the debt's paid, they automatically revert back to the school system. And the schools, we are leasing that space back to the schools. So what we do, and I have that right here, we have the debt service for debt service for 2022 is $3,570,000. We have our restricted revenue, sales tax revenue. It can go to education and it can go to debt service for education. So we do the debt service for education, lottery proceeds can go to debt service and to school needs. And the lease agreement basically says that they will pay us equal to the debt service. So what we do is we take the debt service, we take the restricted revenues out of that number. And then that's the amount that basically the school pays us to pay the school debt. That way, it's paid, that way the consolidation pays for the debt and with the restricted revenue. And that way the schools still gain that benefit and it doesn't. And when we go off and we give them the money and they write us the check, it doesn't change that current expense amount for low wealth calculation. And when we did it, we did have a conversation with the LGC and they suggested this is the way to do that as well.
I swear I've ordered that same.
I'm sure we give it to them.
And they do
turn
that.
around and get right
Gotcha.
back.
Yeah.
I understand.
So there are benefits of us just changing checks sometimes.
I got you.
And with that, you'll notice because we are looking at an increase in sales tax next year, which is a good thing. Actually, the lease income, the amount that we would turn around and bill the schools we're looking at it to go down.
Because that sales tax cannot be used for anything else other than for the schools.
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Where am I from?
So right now, that is actually going to wind up being a savings for the schools.
And what are you projecting that savings to be in the school?
This year, we're budgeted to bill them $1.8 million. Next year, we're gonna bill them $1,560,000.
So $240,000.
Yes, sir. And again, actually, when I was doing this spreadsheet last night, or finishing up adding in this tab, I realized this number was wrong, so actually I wound up reducing it. So this is the appropriate. I do believe this is the appropriate.
The sales tax should really go up because all the, the monies that have been received from the government, to people, it should really affect that number, shouldn't it?
Yes, and statewide, sales tax was up this year. And that's what we've seen. So we have that advantage. And again, that's what I'm going to be looking at, the numbers and seeing exactly how we can do all this as we move forward. And that's really, I'm going to go back in and in between now and this time next week, I'm going to go back in and look at these numbers and see exactly where I'm going to be readdressing some of the sales tax numbers. But with that, and again, this is what when I had a one-on-one conversation with the superintendent, LeGrand, 2-3 months ago, I told her without an agreement from the liaison committee, my recommendation to the board was going to be to keep funding level, to keep funding flat. So right now, this budget is built on the assumption that that they stay at $10,044,895. We would also fund $300,000 in capital. So,
Which is what we did last year.
which is what,
Amount.
yes, sir.
But let's go back and talk about that local contribution on it while we're there. And, you know, she gave us a number last time or I hear that number's changed to about 12.2 million. I don't come up with nothing close to that when I try to do the floor, which you know, trying to get the right number to get to that.
Right.
Different thing. I'm just coming up around 9.5 floor wise, but again, that could be plus or minus.
Right.
But the number they come up with are the only thing that makes sense to me. They're including the capital,
Actually,
which is $3.5 million. About the difference of it.
my understanding is they reached out to DPI, and DPI is not calculated. DPI provides information, but DPI has not calculated this formula. And I don't know if they've ever actually calculated it, but they've not calculated it for years. But what my understanding is, they started with local funds or current expense expenditures. So that includes, that includes the 10 million we're giving them, plus it includes their sales tax refunds. It includes other grants that are not specifically state or federal.
Right.
So their starting number was significantly higher.
I figured something like that was
Yeah.
going on. Saying the way it kind
They're doing everything with kitchen sink.
right.
But,
And go ahead.
and I don't think that they're not in, you have a new superintendent, you have a new finance officer, and I'm not slamming them, but they're just not used.
No, I figured
Nobody's ever calculated that.
that when the finance officer, when they did it, he hadn't been there a month.
Yeah. So, you know, in the calculation that I've done does not show an increase.
So from liaison meeting yesterday, just kind of the short version, that's still a disagreement between both groups. Their rationale is really the thought that perhaps we've not been calculating it right.
Who's they? Us or them?
That the county,
They think
Has not
there's something
been
wrong
calculated
with it.
that we probably should have been including all of those things to create that number. So what we all agreed on, I think, yesterday is, having Ms. Patterson, Mr. Combs, and whatever outside agency can serve as that kind of mediation to help them come to an agreement based upon the floor of what all should be included in that number.
Well, and I would be careful before I make that assumption if I were them, because if you said last year in theory, our total number was 13 million and 13.5 million with everything. And they're saying 12.2 now, $1 million decrease using their number. So I'd be careful on their side if I were doing that. So I agree it all needs to be in the same page, but the statute of that thing reads very specifically. And it is supposed to be calculated by DPI. DPI just said, we can't get it right, so we'll just give it to the schools and let it do it, which that's like me having my granddaughter figure out how much allowance she should be able to get, you know. So somebody somewhere is, and the key to this is I can figure it, but getting the right number, that's the
Start out
problem.
with.
That's
And that's, we all agree
Well,
on that.
and the members of the liaison committee, I think it's kind of repeat what Commissioner Gibson is saying, that we challenged their numbers, and the consensus was we need to get the numbers, a better understanding. Because the best part about numbers is generally they've got to be one thing.
right.
You know, that's, you know, you can't negotiate what that number is. And so our conversations have obviously centered on what the numbers should be for the coming year. And I think we had a very positive conversation yesterday with the liaison committee as a whole. And we believed that the current conversation on the school funding formula, that we weren't going to rely very heavily on what those conversations had been. That we were going to still talk about what our current needs are, what our current ability to pay is, what a different environment we're in with the incoming of funds that we have no real clear understanding of how they can be spent. And we're advocating that the funding level be very similar to what we're currently doing.
I would just be careful with, if they want to list that 12.2 is what the number they should get, well then sure, that's it. That's what you get told. You know, and I don't think they want to do that. So, but that had to be the way they calculated
It was.
I think it floored us all that night. To say that lightly, it floored us all that night, and that number was thrown out.
Yes, it
So
did.
I don't think any of us expected it.
It floors me every time I meet with them, I get floored.
Well, and I made the comment, this ain't right. You know, I can figure that in my head to you, that's not right.
But I think
they were surprised too.
I think the school board members I've talked to were just as surprised at the number as we were. And just, this is, again, Whit Gibson's thought, not representing the liaison committee or even the commissioner members of the liaison committee. But I felt like the conversations that we've had over the last several years have been very constructive. We've continued to go down. I think we have a better understanding that both boards ought to be aware that we're guardians of the taxpayers' money, and the same token that the commissioners should be just as concerned about the education of our children as the school board is. And I think we tried to communicate that and tried to behave that way in the last several years. And I'm gonna do what I did yesterday. I said, I'm not gonna say anything else.
I'm trying to do something.
Well, that and, but right now, unless given something direction, I'll be happy to meet with Kevin Combs, and I'll pull up basically the calculations that I've had, that I can find in my files, for the years that we did it, and they will, and the ones I pull up, they'll wind up tying back to the actual funding.
Yeah.
So, I'll be able to show, this is how we calculated the number that is in our audit. So it was agreed on by both boards. And that method of calculation is the same one I use. But again, something I've been trying to be consistent about is I would recommend to both boards that if that formula went away, we'd all be better off than if the boards both just sat down and negotiated for what is best.
Which is what the other 99 counties do.
Yes.
And I think if you've read John's article in the paper, that's what he was saying.
Yes.
That we should be on the same ground as everybody else. But this is that sheet when I asked how did you calculate it, that they handed it out. Ain't nothing I find that matches up to this, so I don't know where it came from, but again, it's the starting point and what numbers are used, it just doesn't make sense. But anyway, I guess the question is if they fight it, how far are we prepared to take it?
I know one person's answer.
It's all right.
And I can give you mine too. But based on our conversation yesterday, I don't foresee that being where we're headed.
Right, no,
I think-
I don't think that doesn't do anybody any good, so.
Also in here, with our water districts, they look a little bit different because, again, with split up, and the way we're getting financial information from the multiple districts going back in. If you look at the two districts as a whole, or as one, there's not a significant change. But with this, we do have Water District 2. They've swapped, used to be Water District 1 with the previous allocation of funds, generated more revenues than Water District 2. Now Water District 2 generates more funds than Water District 1. But as combined between the two, they are a singular. They are basically no significant change.
Do you have any plan in expanding that water, any of the lines, water district lines? I get that asked every once in a while, but
One of the things that we can use the recovery fund for are water districts. I mean, is infrastructure, specifically water and sewer. We don't have sewer, but we can do water. One of the things, and I have 300,000 in here already, but for capital. But a couple of things I wanted to do, and I was going to go ahead and talk with Charles Nichols about this because they basically manage our water system. Want to go ahead and look into installing generators on our lift station. And also there are areas where we have water line here, and it's a half a mile or a quarter mile apart. And there may be a creek or something in there, so that was the reason we didn't install. But there are going to be some areas where it makes sense for us to go in and connect those systems. And by that, we could also make two systems one system. And it's my understanding that we can do that with these recovery funds.
I keep getting the same call from the folks up on Steve Grove Road there, north of Campton Road. So, it ends at Campton Road, if I'm not right.
Right.
There's 10 or 12 right past that within the next quarter of a mile or so that just continue on, why can't you run it that far? Well, it costs money to run it any far, but.
Right.
If we had the availability of it, now might be the time to do a little of that expansion in certain areas that needed it or wanted it.
Right.
We don't need to run it a mile just to get one person, but, if we can pick up 10 in a quarter of a mile,
And like I said, I know there are some areas that I know that it definitely will benefit the system to go off and do. But this is going to be that opportunity to go off, and if we want to make some short additions, we do it. Because, and I think this is along in your line, if you go off and you run it a mile to pick up one house at the end of the line, that water is going to be absolute crap by the time they get there. Just because you don't want water sitting in a water line sitting still. It becomes nasty and it will taste like bleach every time because that's where chlorine goes to die. But this is going to be one of the opportunities that we have that we can go off and make some small additions and improvements in our water districts. Because we're going to have just under $6.8 million to spend in the next 4 years. So this is going to be a time that we can do this and make a significant improvement.
Not to start a conversation on this, but I did talk to Kelvin and we had a little meeting that certainly we're going to investigate and see what we can do with broadband. If we can find out if there's anything we can do to enhance the providers to come to the areas and, provide the service. You see what I mean?
Sure.
So we really want to do that. And secondly, I hope that we can find a way with some of this money and do something for the individual citizen. May not be able to do much, but I would love to see us be able to do something.
And, because honestly, I've been focusing more on just getting the budget balanced. And some of it is, I've not gone through all the 150 pages of guidance. Some of that is, I'm also still kind of waiting. I'm wanting the association and the School of Government to start bringing out their interpretations on some of this. But my understanding is that you can actually have developed programs that can impact citizens for different services or different reasons.
Yeah,
So,
well, that's good to
those
know.
are some of the things that we could develop, over the next several months. Also, just as a, mention, because this is something that has been discussed before, the housing assistance program, the rental assistance program.
Mhm. I did hear
Yeah.
hear that.
Okay.
I went,
That has opened back up to round 2.
I heard
So, those, and that is a state-run program, but because of the ARP, they are funding it back in through the state. So those applications should be open and available again. So if you have somebody if you know of somebody who is facing potential eviction, they can contact, the easiest thing to do is have them call 211 and begin that process. We don't have any more information on it than.
did that include utilities too?
That would include utilities also.
And-
I think it's utility.
Commissioner Gibson and I and other people, when we announce in our churches,
Mhm.
With the COVID, we don't have many ways of getting information like we do with the Christian community. But we have been announcing that. I don't know how much people have heard it. Do you have an idea?
I know that it's been announced by quite a few of the faith communities.
So, those funds are available, now. Landfill, again, we're not looking at a change in revenues. Or our tipping fee structure, for next year. And basically, our operating costs, there are reasonably unchanged. We do have an increase, inflationary increase, in the fees that we pay to, URI for the garbage that we take off, about, 1.45%, 1.5%, increase, I think. So on our fees going out, but we are still able to maintain that. Of course, we are in a strong cash positive position, but we are not yet in a positive fund balance or positive retained earnings yet because of the amount of the accrued post-closure costs that we have. So we have that liability that we're going to have to complete. So ultimately, to compensate for that, we're going to need to have $2 million in cash in the landfill. That's going to have to wind up that's going to sit there before we're at a positive retained earnings in landfill.
Madam Chair, I'm gonna be excused, but give me 5 minutes and I'll call in, okay?
Okay,
All right, y'all have a good one.
thank you.
Thanks, sir.
I'll join shortly.
Do we need to recess until he gets called?
I guess we can,
We only have one more item, right? 2 more items?
2 more items.
I just didn't know if we needed to wait till he called.
I would think we would.
Yeah.
We can just wait till he steps, until he
Okay.
calls in.
5 minutes, 10 minutes,
Okay,
or 7 minutes like you said earlier.
7 minutes.
And I'm gonna walk to my car for a minute, so.
He check on this offer too sometimes.
Yeah, because he looked concerned about your blood
He
pressure
got
today.
sick there. He said, I'm getting sick. I got
It's hard when you get old. Me and John are really getting old.
29's up there, ain't
We
it?
really old, we ain't getting old, we really old.
29's up there, ain't it?
Yeah.
Go back to your slide.
Oh, yeah, of course.
For the.
And I have a daughter in
what
her
we were
fifties.
spending on schools last year, this year.
Tried my first Chick-fil-A.
How'd you like it?
I liked it pretty good. Next time I get the nuggets, but it's the same thing, really.
Mhm.
You're, I'm sorry, the other way. Yeah, your physical year 2019, is that 1920?
That is 1819.
Okay.
And then 1920.
And so that's not the current year.
The current year is what's in the original and
Okay.
adjusted.
Okay. All right. That explains what I was misunderstanding.
Okay.
I was thinking if it was if fiscal year 19 was 1920, then we gave them 150,000 too much money. Because it was supposed to be 1044 in 1920. And I guess that's what the fiscal year 2020 says.
Correct.
Okay. All right, thanks, sir.
I was gonna say, we need one of those key things, but wouldn't do no good on that door anyway. The fobs. Are we still on? I won't say what I was about to say.
Yeah, whenever we recess, it always stays on, so I'd have to start it, stop it, then I have to merge it. I can't, I tried, I've
I
looked.
won't say what I was about to say. Watch. Everybody play. Find out.
No, it's five.
Three.
Well, I tried the key, and I got it unlocked, now it won't lock.
Yeah, I won't
Oh,
go
go
back.
You think the unlocking part did the hard part? It just stops before it goes in there. It just stops right there. It should. Somewhere that don't make sense.
Kim's Ghost in her 7 minutes is up. Where's she come up with 7 minutes left? She'll come way back.
I think I do that out here.
Was BJ called in?
Yes, I am on.
Okay,
Okay.
we were waiting, you got on to. He's back, he's on.
I've been on, I'm here.
Time you got, Kelvin?
12:16.
Okay. I left my cat out there on the deck. I don't usually do that. So after the meeting, I have to go see if some of the wild cats and pull her out off that deck.
Hopefully not.
She never been, her feet has only been on the ground one time in her life. And so I'm gonna put her out here and see how she does.
Yeah.
How she was trying to get back in the house so fast. I was surprised. But I'm gonna go home and see about it. Then I'm gonna give blood this evening.
How are you?
Going to give blood. Loretta talked me into it. You know Loretta McNeil beside.
Mhm.
She didn't call you about giving blood today.
I can't give blood. Cause on a heart thing, I can't.
Can't give
It won't
blood.
let me give.
My daughter fussed at me. She said, "Mom, you don't need to give her blood." I said, "Well, I checked my record and it said I'm okay." So,
I used to, but I can't give blood.
it don't take that much off you, do it?
It messes, everything messes with my heart, so.
Okay.
Hey, I'm wearing my Iron Man right now.
Oh, yeah. Isn't that something? How long you had that problem?
Oh, just the last 2 or 3 years.
Is that a pacemaker?
No, this is a monitor
Oh, a monitor.
How long you having to wear it?
for a couple more weeks. And that's the little phone that don't do nothing but it talks to this and then this sends it to wherever.
Really?
Mhm.
Technology, isn't that
Why
something?
you having to wear it?
He checks it every year or so just to make sure they.
For that long?
Unless there's something going on, he won't, but he'll put it on there just to monitor.
Commissioner Gibson, is on the phone. Or is online. And I'm gonna make like I said, I'm gonna make a correction in on the, public buildings, detail item. in that Excel file, and I'll correct that today. And over the next week, I will be readjusting some other items in there.
But it'll all be up to date in that Google Drive.
Yes, sir.
So I can just look at it there.
Yes, sir. Do you have any specific questions about anything? And if any point in time you go off and you have questions, you have access to everything. If you just want, or if there's just time you want to come in and figure out how to go through it easier, feel free to come in and I'll be happy to go walk.
This is our last budget meeting before we decide on the tax rate. I mean, decide on everything. I'm sorry.
Well, this will probably, this is the last work session.
I meant work session, what I meant.
One thing that I'm going to recommend is that we go ahead and have the public hearing on June 7th.
Okay,
At that point in time, I will present my final recommendation.
okay.
It's not going to, it will change from this, but it will not change significantly from this, at least in total.
Mhm.
And after that, it would be up to the board. Generally, what we've done is, depending on any other differences, but you'd have one or two other meetings. But with this one, I would recommend after the 7th, unless there's other things that the board wanted to do, you may want to look at having a second meeting in June, potentially the 21st of June. That would give time. If you want to have a work session in between then, of course, we will. But that would also give time to take any other adjustments that we need to come back. If there's additional time that liaison committee wants to sit and discuss, come up with a negotiation, that would still give an additional couple of weeks before that happens.
Well,
And
now,
also-
y'all won't meet again before the June 7th meeting week.
I hope not.
Well, probably not before the June 7th meeting. But we've had we could have a call meeting. We've done that already once this year.
So that would be the timeline I would recommend, because I think the school funding is going to be one of the key items, is going to be one of the key questions that's still out there. That and the tax rate question. But that, and also if there are any questions, any additional information you want from me in between now and the June 7th meeting, please let me know.
Well, can we ask that, and I know we've asked this before and you've done it, and I know it's gonna double your budget work, but I mean, you might have anything else to do. That you compare a budget, work a budget based on that rate that Ms. Golston was saying and being under that dollar mark.
Yes. I can go off and I can come in and I can give you basically what I'll do, I'll come back in with this budget and I'll come back in with alternatives to get back down to a reducing it 1%.
I think that's good. I think I would like to see that. I think we all would.
Because I think we're close to that now.
Mhm.
And especially with this money that's coming in and we're not sure what can and can't be done. And so I don't want to plan for it, but I think we're going to be much better off, or much closer to being able to do that this year than we have been in the past.
In the past, yeah, I do too.
I have to believe that with that much money coming in, there's going to be some things that we can do that we can save enough money to reduce it by hand.
Right. If not more, but I don't want to plan for that, but I mean.
And we can get the school system to see that they're getting about 29 million. It's about 29?
They receive approximately 9 million in ESSER 1 and 2, which is what they've already received, and an additional 20 million in allocation in ESSER 3.
What can you say? What can you say?
But please reach out to me in anything, and I will come up with an allocation back for June 7th that I will give the board. The next item, of course, the request from the Board of Education on the school board stipend. Jason did reach out to surrounding counties and try to pull up information from the commissioners as well as the school boards as far as their stipends. And you have that as a hard copy in your packet. And of course, everything in your hard copy in your packet is also in the drive. Is also in the drive.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, if we do something on this isn't extra money we're giving them, it just gives them the right to take it out of their own fund.
Correct.
Can you all hear me?
Yes, sir.
Okay, one of my initial observations, let me just say this. I know that when the school system sent their request, we talked about it and whatnot. But I will share that, of course, with my just coming from school board, now to the commissioners, I will say that when I first got on the school board, they were only meeting once a month, but now, they meet twice a month. So there is some additional, time put in from that perspective. Of course, not all school board members attend the various functions of the schools, but it can get very,
What happened?
We lost you.
We lost you, BJ.
We can't hear you if you're still talking.
time consuming when you do participate in those events, and for their stipend. And that stands out, the investment does need to be made. Part that Kevin shared.
BJ, can you hear me? BJ,
I can you hear me?
we lost you for about 30 or 40
Hello?
seconds, so you may need to repeat what you just said.
Okay, how about now? Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Can you all hear me clearly? I'm sorry.
Yes.
Okay, so what I was saying was I think we all agree that there does need to be some adjustment. But one of the things in particular that I saw is with most school boards and board of commissioners, the chairman receives a smaller increase or, more than what board members receive. Because of course, as chair, sometimes you have to have meetings outside of the regular meetings and various things. So I do want to make sure that we make that a consideration in our conversation.
It's certainly important because the chair may be coming to talk to different ones through the community and many times before the meetings and things like that. So that's very important. Do we make that decision tonight, this evening, today on this, on this, or do we wait till the June meeting?
You would make, I would not push the decision past June 7th.
Okay, all right. Okay, so we through with that, then we can go on to the, are you finished, Commissioner Gibson?
I am, but let me just throw this out, Ms. Golson, not for us to decide now, but just to give us some thought as we move forward. I want to recommend, not a motion, but just recommend that we consider $150 for board members a month additional and $200 for chairman. Not a motion, just something for everyone to consider, and we'll meet again about it on the 7th.
I think that's a fair amount, Commissioner Gibson.
And somebody may know, is that currently does the school board chairman get the same as the other members, or does he get any increase?
Based on the documentation that Kevin shared, they all get $3,600 annually.
Okay.
That's what the School Board Association had.
Just a comment, Commissioner Gibson, I looked at the numbers that were prepared for us, and what, just for the public who may be listening, we have a list of 6 or 7 other counties and what their school board are paid in comparison to what the commissioners paid. And basically the largest percentage that the school board receives compared to the county commissioners would be Bladen County, where the chair gets approximately 73% of what the school board, the county commissioner chairman in that county gets, and the board of school board members get approximately 68% of what the county commissioners get that are not chairman. And your recommendation for the school board members would be about 75% of what the county commissioners are getting. So I think your recommendation is in line with what of our surrounding counties and their percentage of what the county commissioners get. So that would be maybe a little higher, but in line with that other county. So I think that's a reasonable recommendation.
I do too.
And I guess I would be ready for that to be posed in the form of a motion, but since we are maybe a little fewer of us than would be present in June, I don't mind waiting until then, but.
What do you think, Commissioner Gibson? Do you think we should vote on it today, or since we've got enough people to vote on, or wait till June?
I'm flexible. I just think waiting would give the others an opportunity to have a voice.
Okay. What you think? All right. Is that all right with you, Mr.
I'm
Allen?
fine with it.
I'm fine with that.
I know Mr. Offers was very vocal about it, so he may want to say.
Yeah, he may want to say something about it.
And I will say that this amount for the commissioners does not include
I'm sorry.
the amount that's for the commissioners is not for the additional amount that y'all voted on back a month or whatever it was.
Right, a couple months ago.
Yeah.
That goes in effect July.
Right. So that is not included in this.
What did we get? What were you doing? What are we doing?
Y'all have voted to increase your stipend.
I'll start.
Right.
Oh, yeah,
So
we're talking about
that's
the
not
school
reflected
board.
in this.
No.
That's all.
That actual percentage will be a little bit less.
Yeah. Yeah, that's, when you mentioned that, I wanted to make sure y'all knew that.
If there's nothing else, is there more issues on the school stipend? If not, we go on to this, item 7 then, if it's all right. Anybody else want to say anything about that? Okay.
I just wanted to get some guidance from y'all because I have received that letter that you had in there from RCC and from Workforce Development. I just wanted to get some guidance about how y'all wanted to do that, if you wanted to reappoint those folks, or if you wanted me to put it down on the website to get applications. And there's also a member of the library board that's coming up.
Well, We wouldn't put RCC Board of Trustees appointment on the web, would, I mean, we wouldn't do that. That's our appointment, right?
Yeah, we can.
Well, it's
It
for
would-
That's
any-
right, some of the members are appointed from the,
It's for anybody. It's a public-
anybody, yeah,
it's a
that's
public
true. It's a public, yeah.
No, the ones that's restricted are the Lumber River, Workforce Development Board. That's restricted to certain industries and, and stuff.
John Alpha's on that board, isn't he?
He is.
Yes.
Yeah.
Is
Well,
Clarence on that board?
No, I've got the list right here. When they sent me that letter, it is, Mr. Alford, Mark Ward as the owner of Family Fitness Center as a private sector, Jay Todd, CFO Service Thread, private sector, and Dr. McGinnis for higher education.
I mean, that one, we may want to hold off and talk to Mr. Alford to see if
Yeah.
he still wants to do it. I know we like that, but.
Yeah, he likes that board,
That
but
health
let's
stuff,
see,
he's having some health stuff, and so
Yeah.
that might not.
that may not
Well, and
be.
I've got another, from Southeast something.
Yeah, I know what you're talking
You know
about.
what I'm talking about?
Family and, oh, yeah,
Family community, so.
Family
It
community.
used to be Fort County.
yeah, it
Yeah.
used to be full, it was so
That's
simple
the
when it was
one
full
he really-
county.
He really,
Well, they also sent me a letter asking for him to be reappointed too.
I just think we need to ask him on both of those before we do anything, because I know he really liked that board.
Yes.
Well, I mean, I know, that was a commissioner appointment, so.
But I know he's kind of wind
Yeah.
down some of his
So,
activities.
Some of his
I just
travels
wanted
too.
some guidance
There's a
of
lot of
whether
traveling.
I just wanted some guidance of whether to put these out on the website to ask for solicitations for applications.
Well, you can put on RCC board.
Well,
Is there appointment out there? Are you saying that, let people know that they can be appointed to it? But
Yeah,
there's no vacancy, is it?
there is no vacancy.
No vacancy.
They're asking for a reappointment of, Mr. Dean Nichols. I think that's who they asked
Yeah.
for.
Well, that means there will be a vacancy on June 30th,
Right.
according to
Yes,
this.
his term is up.
Okay, so we can publish that, and we can publish, library board, right?
Yes.
Okay, and we'll wait and talk to, John Alford about the workforce development, that what we're saying.
Well, I will say this, I'm on the Richmond Board of Trustees, and Dean Nichols is a very integral part of that board. He is the current vice chairman and is the chairman of a couple of committees.
Well, do you wanna wait and ask him if you wanna continue to serve before we put it out there?
I know that he wants to continue.
What you think, Mr. Allen?
In holding with what we've been talking about, I agree with everything he said, but in the spirit of fairness, that we put it out there and see if nobody comes, and,
Nobody comes, right, yeah. All right, then we'll put down RCC Board of Trustees and the Library Board and hold off on appointment Lumber River Workforce Commission to, talk to John Alford.
Well, I'll try to get in touch with him before the June 7th meeting.
Okay, and then
If
we'll
y'all
know
want
whether.
to, you can do that too. But
Yeah, I just want to make sure I know his personal life changing, he's trying to slow things down, and I don't want to load his wagon without him.
But he loves some of these boards.
He
so
does,
seriously.
he does, especially the four county.
Yeah,
Four county, but
yeah, it's south. Let me see. what
it's the southeast,
Yeah,
whatever
South.
they call it now, but.
I
know
got
he
an
loves
award
board.
for that one
Or he likes
time.
being on that board.
I
and
should-
don't want to take that
I
away.
can't believe I can't remember the name.
Southeastern Community Action Partnership.
Yeah,
All right, so I will advertise for the RCC Board of Directors and the Library Board.
and then after you talk to John, you may want to put it on the agenda for, June about the appointment, if he decides he doesn't want it.
Right.
Okay.
Now, what about Jay Todd and Mark Ward and Dr. McGinnis?
Can we appoint them without?
I mean, I can put it on June 7th. You can do it all at one time after I talk to Mr. Alford.
Is our vacant, all of them are vacant?
They're not. They're asking them to be reappointed.
Okay, reappointment,
They're
okay.
being reappointed
Their
because
terms are re-expired.
Because they're
terms
Term
expired.
expired.
Yes, but now, if someone were to apply for that, they have to be the owner of a private business.
But there's a lot that may want to do that.
And you would have to be somehow connected into higher education for that one.
That some people have criticized that board a lot There's a lot of people don't attend and then maybe we need to give us the names of people on that board. We maybe need to put that one out. Give us the name of the ones on that board.
Dale McKinnis with RCC,
Yeah, okay,
and then Mark Ward
yeah.
and Jay Todd.
I don't know Jay Todd.
He's the
Service
service thread.
Let's put it out there. I mean, after all, we got the, we really need to, these people probably have been on this board forever. And sometimes we need to allow other,
Mark Ward's we put Mark Ward on there after he became the economic developer,
okay.
but we're using him as an owner of a business,
Mm-hmm,
as a business slot.
mm-hmm.
But there's a lot of people out there that could qualify under that.
Yeah.
I'm not saying he isn't, it's like she said, there's a lot of, we need to offer it.
Yeah, we need to offer, so all these people on this board forever, then, you know, it's really not fair.
The harder one will be the higher education.
Yes.
Yeah,
That
because
will
the
be
pool's gonna be so
Yeah.
small for that.
Particularly when you're talking about workforce development,
Right.
because that is,
I mean,
that's
you'd
in
have
their
to have-
wheelhouse.
You'd have to have somebody, maybe even a small business administration or the small business, part of RCC, something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, for that one, if it's not Dale McKinnis, it's somebody who's reporting directly to Dale McKinnis.
Or it could be somebody at St. Andrews.
Yeah.
Yes, and Andrew
true,
for a
yeah.
change, because Dale McInnes is, he's been on scene like everything. So maybe it's time for us to look at some of the other colleges,
And the one on the library board is Jim Walters.
Who's he?
He's at St. Andrews, I believe. This is he's completing or has completed his first term.
Okay. Well, anyway, you write it, we'll deal with it on June 7th.
So if I put that out there, it may be July.
Commissioner Gibson, go ahead.
So are we posting these as vacancies for people in the community to apply?
Yes.
Yes. I will do that Monday.
Great, thank you.
But it will probably be, I need to give it enough time to get applications in, so it may be July before.
Well, these terms expire June 30th, so we probably
Well, they
need
do.
to do it before then, but.
Well, I can do it on the June 21st meeting.
That's what I was gonna say, do it in that later meeting.
But they serve until they're replaced. So,
Right.
it's okay if, it were.
Mhm.
And normally we would have our July meeting on the 5th, but that's a holiday.
Mhm.
So,
So we're not having
no, it'll be on,
I ain't looked at the calendar.
it'll be on the 12th. But I would like to try to get some applications in, before I bring them to you. That's all I needed to know, though. I just wanted to-
12th is, well, I guess it'll be okay. That would normally, because that's the weekend of the NACO.
Oh, it is, but it's
It's over that Monday.
Yeah,
but I'm
it's over.
coming back Sunday.
Right. It's over that Monday.
So it's state convention or the national?
National.
National.
Where is it this time?
It's in DC. It's just on the other side of the river in Maryland.
That's where my daughter resides. Yeah, okay. So what date do we have in the July meeting? You said what? What day?
12.
12. Okay, so it's a good ways down July then.
We'll get some applications in, and I'll bring them back on the 21st. They get about a month.
So we're definitely going ahead and establish a meeting on the 21st. Is that the proposal?
That was just my recommendation.
What day is it? What day of the week is the 21st on?
Monday.
Monday.
Okay. We used to meet on Monday because
The day after following.
it always rains on Monday, but we used to it, so it's fine.
And also, we normally do 7, but that meeting can happen at any point in time during the day.
Yeah, because you're going to have to recess it.
Yeah, so if it is a situation where you would rather meet earlier than 7 in the evening,
Which one? You talking about the 21st?
on the 21st.
I'd rather have the daytime. I mean, 3 o'clock, 2 o'clock, maybe 11. Just have it sometime in the daytime.
We won't be here long, right?
No, about like this one,
Famous
right?
last words.
Yeah, don't say that.
I say
I'd like
10.
to put some stuff on that to take care of so that the July meeting is not quite as long.
But most of that will probably be more consent agenda, maybe
Yeah.
some appointments and things like that.
I'm fine with it. Just give me a time. So
And that y'all can set up the 7th, Monday night.
I'm
Okay,
just gonna mark that day out, so I know that something's gonna happen that day, and we'll figure the time out later.
so is that it, Calvin? Except for the commissioner's comment?
That is it.
Any comments, y'all?
I gotta go back, and I think Ms. Golson's the one that asked for this, when we were talking about the employees back in the office working. I don't know where my note went. I think it was Susan or somebody, maybe Kevin said that they were gonna give us a report of who was back in and who wasn't back in, but maybe the easier way to do that now is just to ask the question again, is everybody back in the office working pretty much 100%? I know I saw the mask mandate thing come out the other day. I don't know where my thing is.
And actually, we had a department head meeting Tuesday, and I asked the question, how many people did everybody have that had a work from home schedule? And I know there are departments that do. We did end the COVID work from home. I want to work from home because of this or because of COVID. Those restrictions have been released. But I do, and I know DSS sent back in a list, but I think there was a question back, and I got, and honestly, I'll apologize, I don't have the final number. But I know there are a number of departments, there are some departments that are split timing from home and in the office.
Well, I like to say that, shouldn't the board take a position on this? I mean, is that within our authority? What, is it within our authority? Kevin?
You absolutely have the authority to set operational policy.
My opinion on it is we're a service organization, and you can't serve sitting at home. And don't matter if you're trying to do it from phone or email or whatever, but I challenge you to call this office one day during the week to talk to somebody. And most of the time, you're gonna get a voicemail if you get that. But who knows when that's coming back? And I mean, I'm not ashamed to say that I would turn the voicemails off during the day. Somebody gonna answer the phone somewhere in the building if it starts ringing, but I'm not to that point.
Are you talking about a specific office? Are you talking about a specific?
I'm not gonna go down that road.
Okay,
But it's not just one. But I mean, but you know, I challenge you to call this office to talk to somebody for something, with the exception of a couple, but,
The operator always answers, but trying to get somebody from the operator.
well, even if you're dialing the direct line, you know, it should, but.
You're saying you're down the direct line, you're
Down
getting
the direct
recording.
line.
A direct line, okay.
And,
'Cause I know Lynn is always at answer every call.
yeah, she's always up there, so, but she's only one person, she can't do so much at a time, but that's my opinion on it, but I don't know that, unless we were space limited for some reason, which I think is DSS's problem. I don't know of a situation that we need to have a work from home.
Me either. I concur with what he's saying. The COVID-19 situation is much better. The economy is opening up. Restaurants, movies, theater, everything is opening up, and I don't see any reason unless the department head sees a reason for doing it, a specific reason, you know, that will affect the outcome of whatever we're trying to do in that department. You see what I'm saying? So I concur with you.
I mean, I think every position in this county is a service position because it works for the people. And if the people can't get a hold of the people they need to, either coming by here, seeing them or calling them, then I don't know where, you're in the wrong business if you think that's not what you're here to do.
So therefore, as a whole, this board decides that on the specific specifications, special occasions, that we should permit in-home, what you call it?
Work from home.
Work from home situation.
Well, and I don't disagree with what Commissioner Ivey is saying, but Commissioner Golston, if you're gonna leave it to the department heads to make that decision, I think that's the decision that this board should make. Or if we want to go beyond that and say that the department head could recommend either to the county manager or to this board that a certain position can be adequately served by a work from home situation.
That's the way I would.
Yeah,
I
that's
wouldn't-
the way we put it.
Okay, so, because I don't, nothing comes to mind right now, but I can't believe there might not be a couple of positions out of 300 that can be served just as well
Yeah.
from somebody working at home.
And so,
That in those cases, I don't want that person not to have an avenue by which they can make that request and it be granted.
yes,
But they would have to come through the.
come through the department
It would have to
head,
be
to
recommended by
Calvin,
the
to
department,
us.
by
Yeah,
the department head and by the county manager to this board that we
Board,
make that
yeah,
decision.
make that decision. Okay, that's good. Kevin, you got it? Any question about that?
Well, and maybe what we need to do is, again, because we're dealing with 4 of us instead of 7 of us, let that be maybe the recommendation we make to the full board and have a vote on.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Unless Mr. Gibson, you still with us? You hear us? Keep trying to unmute.
Okay, so let's present this information to the June 7th board meeting.
The other one I had was the Laurel Hill bids. I mean, originally we were supposed to be shoveling dirt next week. I don't think that's gonna happen either, but do we know when we're gonna get that?
Yes, I've got that date and I will send that.
I mean, I know what I read in the paper, but that doesn't mean that that's the right information. Well, I've learned it. Just because you read it there, don't mean it's necessarily right. You would like to think it is.
You would have that. No comment.
Bid release should be Monday, pre-bid meeting on June 2nd with a bid date on June 24th. So the bids would be brought back to the board at the June 12th meeting.
I'm sorry, the bids are due back on the 24th.
You talking about July 12th?
So yes, the July 12th.
Yeah. Threw me off.
You got, okay, are there no other business?
No, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Do you have anything else,
No, I don't-
Commissioner?
Well, I had 3 things. One of them was the Laurel Hill Center, so I won't go back to that one. Second, I had a local charity group call me about whether or not the board would consider making a contribution to, and I went as best I could through what I felt like was the history of this board making contributions to individual charities, and said I did not think we would take a position on that. It was the Boy Scouts, and they had I think Hope County had made a contribution of X thousand dollars. Robinson County had done the same thing. I told them it had basically not been the position of this board to do that. And unless I didn't want to state that if that wasn't kind of the consensus of this group.
And we got the partners in ministry, they called me again, so
I was
we
gonna
got to
say,
decide on that too.
Yeah, we go back to that whole thing with partners in ministry, and I think when you crack that door open,
That's what I told him, and the person who called me, the person who called me perfectly understood that. I told him this was yesterday. I told him we were having this meeting today, and I just wanted to make that statement. Probably the one thing I really wanted to bring to this group, the Economic Development Corporation had several years ago, before I was on that board, had a fairly extensive conversation about changing their bylaws. And so the last several months, we have looked at the bylaws. We've had some meetings and some input from some people who are on the economic development boards of Moore County, of Bladen County, a couple of other places, the Southeast Partnership, which is a larger group. And they just talked about what their boards were made of and what they thought made them stronger. And so the the Economic Development Corporation has gone through the process of revised their bylaws, and in order for it to be official or even take place, it has to go both to the city council for their group to approve the changes, and to our group, to the county commissioners, for us to approve those changes. It all boils down to just clarifying the language for the most part. There's one fairly major difference. Currently, the voting members of the Economic Development Corporation are the 3 appointed members from the county commissioners and 2 appointed members from the city of Laurinburg. We are recommending that we add 2 additional board members. They would be recommended and elected, or select, I think selected is the term we used, by the 5 members on the Economic Development Corporation, to add 2 additional members, voting members to that board. And they would be people chosen by us. They would not be elected officials. We don't have any individuals in mind. We talked about, whether or not get people on the board that might be more knowledgeable, whether it had to do with finances, whether it had to do with real estate, whether it had to do with workforce development. We have some ex officio members like Dale McKenna's, Regina Smalls from the workforce development, Chris English from the Chamber of Commerce, Representative Joanne Gentry from the Airport Commission. There's some other members that are, and actually not even called ex officio members. They're kind of just partners who come and provide input, part of the discussion, are present when votes are taken, but are not voting members. So what I will bring to the board at either the June 7th or 21st would be that the revision to those bylaws that will add 2 new members to the Economic Development Corporation. I've got that. I did not have it. That's what Mark Ward brought me just when it started this meeting. I will have this scanned and mailed to all the board members to be voted on at some time in the next month. I'm just bringing that to your attention. I'm glad to answer any questions,
Okay, that makes sense. We'll look forward to the recommendation that you're going to present. Is it any other board members? Anybody else got anything?
Yes. BJ.
Oh, BJ, I'm sorry. Commissioner Gibson.
I don't have any commissioner comments today. No, thank you.
I'd like to say this, and I really don't exactly know what I'm saying, but here's what I would like to see. When we get the rescue money that the federal government, the state, whoever is sending it, I would like to give a small grant, not loan, but grant to the small businesses in the county. Now, I don't know, I guess that would be under Mark Ward's area, but I would like for us to try to advance small business. To me, it's always been the key business in any community, in the county, in the town. And I think this way we could really make them feel like, know the importance, role that they play in the community, and help maybe advance their business somewhat, to give them a small grant when we get our money. What y'all think?
Yeah, once we know we can and whatever.
Once we know we can, yeah.
I'm fine with that.
Okay. What you say, Calvin? You the main man.
I'm confident. I don't know what the restrictions would need to be.
Yeah.
But I am confident that would be something that would be allowable.
Okay.
Because specifically that I'm aware of, it does allow for grants to private businesses due to COVID impacts.
Mm-hmm.
So that is something that, I don't know what all the details would have to be to do that, but I do know that's an option.
What you think, Commissioner Gibson? Commissioner Gibson?
Yes, ma'am. I think it would be wonderful once we, find out if we're able. I think as a small business owner myself, I know that COVID, for me, COVID has really got me to a place where I'm not even sure if I'm going to be able to open back up, because I've lost so much in overhead just trying to maintain while I've been closed. So I know for other small businesses as well,
whatever help we can offer would be appreciated.
Thank you. Now, I guess we could go to the chamber and get, if we ever pass this, to get the list of the small businesses in the county, right? Kelvin?
The chamber would have their memberships. We could also, reach out to the city of Laurinburg for anybody who has a business license.
Yeah,
It's gonna be
business
more
license.
comprehensive.
Uh-huh.
But those are your two best sources as far as outreach.
Okay, so we all be thinking about it and looking around the businesses in our communities and see if, if we think that this will help them advance somewhat. Is there anything else we got in this meeting today?
That's everything off the agenda.
I think it's been a pretty good meeting. Do I hear a motion for dismissal?
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and proper second that we adjourn the meeting till, June 7th. All in favor, let me know by saying
This
aye.
conference is no
Aye.
longer being recorded.
Opposes no. Motion passed. Okay. Thank you, Kelvin and Jason. So what?
Y'all almost didn't have enough to adjourn.
I know. We just didn't make it a skin of our.
Just a second.
Let me just a second. Don't say that yet. I'm still on the.